Okay. Well, it is now time to move into the round of 8.
It's flying by.
Starting to get serious. We're just 3 races away. And then we're in the Super Bowl of NASCAR for 2023. So
It's weird to think. It's weird to
4
think
more
we're
to
already
go.
here. Yep.
And then it's, what, 3 months until Daytona?
No, the Coliseum. I get the Clash, but
Okay.
yeah, that'd be almost 3 months to the date till that, and then a few weeks later it's Talladega. But as weird as it sounds, that's why a lot of people don't realize too is it goes quick. But NASCAR being such a long season, that next year, I think it's either 22 or 23. I know it's one of the two. They're literally racing once we get to Daytona for 22 or 23 straight weeks, no stops. So they make up for it. And that consecutive streak is more than. In fact, I think that'd be a whole F1 season of races. That's more than an IndyCar slate. So a lot of racing to be made here.
Do you have a story on the schedule?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Keep going down. I wrote a lot last week, so it's on there. So just keep going down. Because in fact, I have a right there. 2024 NASCAR schedule available with 10 takeaways.
Okay.
That's one of my points in the 10 takeaways. It'll say exactly how many weeks it's on there.
All right. So good. So we'll talk about this. And before we do, let's wrap up a pretty uneventful compared to what happened last year. And really other
Yeah.
Rovals. There was a lot. And I'll say this. Here's not that I mean the Roval's done, right?
No, they're coming back.
They're coming back. All right, great decision. I thought they were going to go to the Charlotte.
They talked about it, but they kept it. I don't know if that had something to do. They never fully said that since Montreal didn't come in, so they just
Bummer.
kept it. But the drivers aren't too happy about that either.
Yeah,
But
because
they
here's
kept
the
it.
thing: this is the way I think they should do it. If they want to maintain the Roval, then I think that they should. I know the drivers don't like it probably, but for the fans, if you're going to do it and you're going to have the cautions and the stage breaks, then I think you should keep the restart where it was, so we'd have more
Yeah,
excitement.
because
Because you know,
it goes to show that restart zone was probably the big case of carnage because we didn't
yes,
really have any.
yeah,
And it's just awkward too, in a way, with these stage breaks, which this was a prime example. Hey, nothing against AJ Allmendinger. He had a fast car, but didn't Tyler Reddick have the best car?
oh, there
And
was
you hear
no
the drivers,
doubt. I
you hear
mean,
it.
I as soon as he started to play the game of I want the points, and that's what it's more important. As soon as he started, you knew it. You were like, oh no, he's gonna it's gonna now unless there's some really carnage, then he's just not going to be able to get up there.
And they even said that during the broadcast and getting the quotes from the drivers too, that saying basically there's two strategies: win the race, which if you do, you're not getting stage points. It doesn't work. They basically have said it doesn't. If you go for stage points, you're not going to win the race. But at the flip side, if you do go for stage points, you're not going to win the race. So there's and that's the problem with it. Doesn't it seem gimmicky where it's like, oh, the best car,
Yeah,
they're probably not going to win if they go for stage points, which Tyler Reddick qualified on the pole with the first 27 laps, clearly had. I mean, he came from the back, the finish sixth, which I thought was impressive on a track that the driver said you can't pass. You cannot pass with this car on this track. You just kind of settle in. And he
I
got a.
think he didn't even try to once he got into that fifth and sixth position and he knew where he was.
Yep.
I don't think
There's
that
no reason to.
why be aggressive?
Yep. He just will ride in six. And that's where I have a problem with it. And I get it's. You could say, well, in stick and ball sports, the best team doesn't always win. They might have more turnovers. They might. Hey, I mean, not to say that I know this for a fact, but I think most of us could think the Buffalo Bills are probably a better team than Jacksonville Jaguars. The Buffalo didn't win in London. I mean, there's other factors that kind of take you aside that I get it. The best car then isn't always going to win, but shouldn't the best car have an advantage? And with this, you're taking their advantage out of it. If you have the best car and you need points, you're not going to win. That just seems backwards to me. It just seems completely mystified. But when you don't have stage breaks, the best car won. Michael McDowell, William Byron. I mean, I think if you're going to ask fans or bettors to bet on a race, I would not bet on a road course then.
No, forget that. Next year, we're going to remember this. So, yeah, it really, and that's what made it the race it was. It was just uneventful. And without the carnage, it was sort of like how the cars would play in a super speedway race in the old days, where they're just going to be careful, not get in any trouble. And who wants to watch that? I mean, come on. And now, let's just come back next year and do this all over again because it was so great. Come on. I mean,
and I agree with what Denny Hamlin. I haven't listened to it yet, but I kind of got the gist of the tease for his podcast this week about his problem with this 2024 schedule is you've got 2 road courses. So we're going to see 2 races of that and 2 super speedways with Atlanta and Talladega. So that's 4 of your first 6 races on luck tracks.
In the playoffs.
And the playoffs. Shouldn't skill outweigh luck when you get to the best time of year? And now you're saying, hey, the first 6 races, you're gonna have to kind of luck by. And then once you get to the round of 8, we'll put more skill back in your hands. But I could see where that would kind of rub me wrong if I was a driver in that aspect of, because there's nothing about Sunday whereas really qualifying was more in your hands, but you kind of have to play the do I want points or win card. And it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to have a fast car to get points and win the race. And that's a problem.
I don't know what they're thinking. I just don't. I mean, they could still change their mind with the rules. Maybe they'll do that.
I think the rules, the easiest way would be get rid of the stage breaks for those races. Because that at least puts it back in your hand.
Yeah.
Because right now I see what they're saying. If you, for a playoff driver that's on the bubble, it's not in your control because you can do one or the other. It's a race. It's a full accumulation of all the laps. It's like, well, if you need a win, you should be allowed to just win. And if you need points, I mean, points are also a big thing. It completely takes strategy out. It's just one strategy or the other, and you're not going to win the race if you go on one side. And shouldn't racing be about winning the race? It just seems backwards. So then you add Talladega and Atlanta to the mix. It just makes it even worse. So it's a weird start to the playoffs next year.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Let's see, we posted up there. So here's the schedule for next year. And stop me as soon as you. What's the first change? Well, Bristol.
First would be Atlanta, right there in second race.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so they did do that. Why on earth would they do that?
So Ben
I know
Kennedy,
why they're doing it. What am I saying? Yeah.
They did. His reasoning somewhat makes sense in saying the Daytona 500, we get the most viewers that we get all season. Those are and so why would we not want to bring the second race of the season kind of similar to what they're watching for the first race? Like, hey, let's keep your attention. You're going to see this product next week in Atlanta. So I get what they're going to try to sell. However, that's an expensive start to the season when your fleet is kind of rebuilt and they're trying to eliminate the need of 7, 8, 9, 10 cars sitting on the showroom floor. Let's have a couple so we don't have to have all that manpower. Well, what happens if you wreck in your duel? What happens if you wreck in the Daytona 500? And what happens if you wreck a week later in Atlanta? You're down 3 race cars before you even get out west. And then you got to go out west. So that could be I could see some nightmares early on. So that's a big change. You got Bristol right there.
Yeah, so that's huge, as we've talked about. That's awesome. Oh, by the way, this nonsense.
Yeah. Yep. Crazy.
Change.
3:30.
What the hell are they thinking, man?
You got Richmond, another change.
3:30, man. Nothing goes on from 12 to 3. It's like, come on.
Especially in the spring.
I start thinking about dinner by the time we get to 4 or 5 o'clock, not the beginning of a race.
Yep. I get the two West Coast 3:30 because that's 12:30 their time. So I get those, but the others, Coda 3:30, Bristol 3:30, you give yourself no shot. That thing's if it has a typical spring mountain
That's true.
rain, you're getting pushed back to a night race on a Sunday night. Like are you trying to make that race go back to dirt? Because you're not giving anybody a chance to at least a noon Bristol spring race start can get people from North Carolina, Georgia, that you could get back home a good bedtime and get to bed to go to work the next day. A 3:30 Bristol start, and that thing's not ending until 6 o'clock at the earliest. And by the time you travel home, you've now asking somebody to take the next day off of work. So that I don't like that.
And again, no deal yet. So no streaming deal, right?
No, that would be for the next season after that. So that would be for 25.
Why can't they put a deal together? Why? Because they have a current contract that's running out with the.
Yep. I think there's negotiation periods when they're doing that. But Fox has the Fox Sports Go you can always throw on there.
You just do that? This way you can, hey, it's going to rain. We're going to move it up to 1 o'clock. And if for some reason they can't get it on Fox for scheduling reasons, then you got to go to our streaming service and we'll pick it up, midway when it's live. But it just works in their favor. I
think you could do both. I think you could start it at noon and knowing you're going to air it and tape delay at 3:30 because half the crowd you're going to get, you're split. You're getting the same viewers anyways, but you at least can logistically get.
Yep. You could take
because the people because let's be honest, the reason racing likes to be on Fox or NBC is you're going to get the casual race fan or person that I have a cookout, I have a birthday party, I might have a get together, and they just throw something on the TV. It's easy to go to a network. It's fine. You can find something on Fox or NBC other than Fox Sports 1 or USA. You get more ratings naturally because of that. So if you put the race at 3:30 on that network, those people aren't checking social media to know that Kyle Busch won that race 2 hours before. They don't know. The people that do know are going to watch it on the app, on the streaming wise. They're already going to tune in. So you're combining the numbers. What's it matter? You might get better numbers. So doesn't make sense.
No, doesn't. So
what's 7 o'clock. Richmond on Easter night, 7 o'clock. I don't foresee that being extremely well attended. I don't know how many people are going to go to Richmond that's Easter night, which
that's weird. Why wouldn't they race on Saturday?
They for some reason think the Easter thing's working, and instead of moving on Bristol dirt, you're going to go to Richmond. So it's a Richmond night race.
Wait a second, March 31st. Are there college basketball?
That's probably that would be the Sweet 16 Elite 8.
So there's college basketball going on.
Yep.
Not a lot. Usually a Sunday night they have a game maybe or two.
Usually it's like a 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's usually 2 and 5 on the Elite 8 game. So it's probably right after that would be over.
All right. Next change?
Texas, April 14th.
We're keeping this crappy speedway. Why is it what's the change?
That's this year's playoff race is now moving up. So they're only going there once. So that will be the 3:30 Sunday. That's the reason IndyCar doesn't have Texas, because IndyCar was supposed to run there on April 7th. So that's what I was teasing in my IndyCar report. And then even last week when I was saying the reason why IndyCar they announced their schedule in Texas not being on it is because you can't run IndyCar one weekend and Texas the second weekend. That's too much of a nightmare. Then the next change would be Iowa.
This is what they had last year.
Yep, kind of seems the same from
Why?
there. Talladega, they want to give it a second go-around. Yeah, people liked it, and they paved the track, or they're currently paving the track.
Oh, so it's going to be different?
It's going to be worse.
Oh, it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
Great. Can't wait to tune in for that.
The character is gone from that track. Now granted, you're eventually going to have to.
on that week.
Yep.
Is this crappy race?
We got Indy 500 qualifying. That'd be it. Those two. Then you got Charlotte. You got Gateway, Sonoma, Gateway. All the same. And then Iowa. There's your new addition. Your one new addition. Look at the time and look at the day.
Nighttime. What's June 16th?
That's Father's Day. You're going to run a nighttime race on Father's Day.
But what is it with the night races on holidays?
I don't get it. Now it worked with a Sunday night. I know they experimented that this year with Atlanta and Nashville, and the ratings were actually good. So I get having like, hey, football's got Sunday night football. Why not in the summer we throw a Sunday night race instead of Saturday night race? It got better ratings. But Father's Day, there's a lot of cookouts and stuff people have. Like, why would you not want to run in the afternoon to catch a Father's Day night? That's in Iowa.
Is
There's
anybody
nothing
on
over there.
somewhere to answer these questions?
They were last week. They didn't really answer a whole lot. They didn't answer that logistical question of why.
Why not? Why,
Yeah,
was it a press conference instead of a one-on-one?
kind of a Zoom call with like a conference call, basically
Dale Jr. can't
explaining.
get an interview with one of these guys?
Now he would be the one that if he could get that, he probably will. Usually he does. So if Dale can get that and ask that question, Iowa, I'm all for. I'm all for that day. If you want to race on Father's Day, that's more power to you. But 7:00 at night in Central Iowa makes zero sense to me. That is, if you're going to run that race at night, run it on Saturday night. Don't run it Sunday night. That doesn't make any sense.
All right, I don't like this back to back, but all right. So the Chicago Street Race is back, and
You
they
also
didn't
got
learn their
right.
lesson from this.
Nope.
Did they?
Still 4:30. No, and you also got a little before that. New Hampshire moved from July to June.
Oh.
You'll notice that after. Not that it makes a big difference, but
Okay.
it's up because that's the Olympic break when it usually runs, so they just moved it up.
Okay.
Nashville's a day race. I don't know why they moved it away from night. I thought it worked on a Sunday night this year. They moved it up to a 3:30 start time on a Sunday
Oh, it
in the
was
middle
a night
of the
race
heat.
this
Remember
year?
that was remember when NBC took over, they made that their Sunday night race to kick off, which I thought worked really well. Why they're not, I don't know what's going on that weekend. Maybe there's PGA stuff or something going on. I don't know,
June
but
30th. Okay.
and then you got Chicago Street, you got Pocono, Indy Oval. There's the Brickyard.
Brickyard is back, and then that's when the
So
break happens.
yep. So basically, from Daytona all the way to this point, they run every week.
Oh, until
So
Brickyard.
till right after the Brickyard. Yep. So Daytona 500 to Brickyard 400, NASCAR will run every Sunday.
Then
Or
there's a
Saturday.
3-week delay.
2 weeks. So you got the
2 weeks.
28th.
So we missed 2 weeks. Okay.
And then you come back with Richmond, which is a Sunday. It's weird because you live East Coast time like I do. Sunday, August 11th at 6 p.m. in Richmond that's kind of a day race still. That's a weird start time for a Sunday race on a August 11th.
It's just a general day. Nothing going on. Okay.
No, and if I'm not mistaken, and I know you'll know this too, isn't usually that Sunday in August the Hall of Fame game? NFL, isn't that usually the first weekend NFL comes back?
Usually, I think it's a week before that.
Well, I bet. Well, especially so with Olympics, they might have NFL that Sunday. That's probably why if you looked at races on USA, I bet you're going to go head to head with NFL. I don't know what genius thought of that up, but
Okay. Interesting.
because the Olympic break will be NBC bump and all that. I have a feeling they'll use NFL that Sunday, which doesn't make any sense. And then you got a 2:30 Michigan start, which you're tempting fate there. If it rains, you're like this year, you're moving that to Monday. Daytona moves up, same weekend, but moves up a week because
so they're not doing the cut. So they're switching. So Darlington is the cutoff.
Only because they didn't want to Darlington, which I applaud them for this. They found out that you shouldn't move it from Labor Day weekend. So let's move it back. We'll leave it alone. It's always going to be Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
With the 2 weeks off, you pushed everything back. So in order for that race to stay on Labor Day weekend, that's technically week 26 of the schedule. So it's still Daytona than Darlington like it was this year, but it's just the way that 2 weeks fell.
And how was Darlington with the new car?
Better. I like that better as a cut race because it puts it back in the driver's hands. Darlington is a driver's track. It's not a fluky random. So the industry, drivers and teams actually like it. Because Daytona they don't like because it's like, are we really going to let a 30th place driver in points fluke their way into winning Daytona and get at least Darlington's in your hands? So that's the main change. But then you get in the playoffs, you notice that first round is completely, other than Bristol, different. You got Atlanta, Watkins Glen, and Bristol.
Bristol was a cutoff on a Saturday night.
So hopefully that shows a little bit better than what we've seen, but at least that stayed. And even in this second round, you still had the same two races, Talladega and the Roval, but Kansas moves from the first round to the second round, and you get Watkins Glen and Atlanta. So if you just take those 6 races, that's 4 wild card races where it's honestly, if I'm Kyle Larson and Martin Truex Jr., I'm probably a little nervous right now because we talked about this year how they're not good typically on road courses and super speedways, and 4 of your first 6 playoff races, so your first 2 rounds are on those tracks,
Okay.
which completely is not fair. Which I always say you got to switch this up a little bit because that's not fair to those drivers that aren't good on those tracks.
That's true, but
Because
they're not changing.
If I'm a team right now looking at the schedule, then I'm going to make sure my super speedway, my road course program are on point because you just got to get to the round of 8 at that point. And because if they're not, it doesn't matter what you do, you could be eliminated pretty early. And then the rest kind of stays the same.
Okay. All right. So
other than I will say that it stays the same by moving back. As you notice, Phoenix next year is November 10th, not November 3rd.
So it's a week later.
Yeah.
And that doesn't
because of the
change
Olympics.
anything.
Doesn't really mean much other than just we'll race 2 weeks in November instead of 1.
Okay. All right. So there you go. That is the schedule. And again, we'll have a link in the description so you can follow along with us there while you're watching this.
Yep. And there's not a lot. That's why I just, by the time they announced it last week, I had day job stuff. I didn't get it. It was 3:00 when they did it. I'm like, I don't have time to do a recap video. And I knew Friday was already going to be too late. So I figured we'd talk about a show. And really, if you look at the overall picture of this schedule, it's not a ton different compared to this. I mean, just little minor things here and there, but it's 35 of the 36, we'll call races, are still on the schedule.
Yeah, we'll have more time to bitch about the schedule next year. Okay, so let's go over. I'm gonna post up here so everybody can see the comments from last week. We're gonna throw this in there. So this is, of course, from our show, and there's Lana, who's just on fire. So we want to thank Lana again. She thanks us, as you can see, for another great video filled with insights, trends, and stats. Very helpful as usual.
You know, when she had right there, it's not fair with the way they run these races. Those are the top 3 cars right there. If Elliott, because as I said, if that caution doesn't fly and Elliott gets the pit with the stage break like he was going to, him and Reddick are the top 2 drivers. They were the top 2 coming back out of that thing. So Byron did finish second. So she had right there, in my opinion, those are the 3 best drivers that she. So yeah, on a hot streak because those 3 should have been 1, 2, 3, in my opinion.
And matter of fact, I think they were. Let me see where it was. If I saw the, yeah, I think there was. I think I could have sworn I saw another comment from Lana after, but I'll have to see if I can find that. Also, John, not only with this comment, but also another $1.99 donation. So we want to thank John, as usual, because those $1.99 donations all add up. So Appreciate it, John. And right here, good job, guys, from Bat 1972, Alan, and Wayne. Another great show. Thanks. So those are some of the comments. I could have sworn there was something in there from Lana, but I can't recall. I think she said something about, let's see. Oh yeah. This was on race day. She said she just needs Reddick to be ahead of Elliott at the end.
He was, so she won.
He was. So we'll have to keep us updated, Lana, with how that's going. I don't know how much money she's making in her league. Hopefully enough. And it better not be for fun.
I think it was like a Survivor League, wasn't it? Where she gets to pick a driver.
I believe so.
I think so. She's doing well.
So,
good week to use Reddick. Nothing against Reddick. I know we'll get in our picks, but I think as we'll go over my picks, as I said, I narrowed it significantly down again for I mean,
Yeah.
I know we're
and it's the perfect race to do that anyway. So
it is. We're nearing these tracks this round. There are certain drivers that stand out, and it's going to remain that way. I feel these are drivers' tracks we're coming to.
And then we also have the futures. So the futures, it's the time of the year; they're getting shorter, of course, and that's that's going to happen. So taking a look at the current futures, let's see. Here's the final 8 drivers left. So you have the 4 favorites, and then you've got Busher through Bell. Now, I'm a little bit surprised. Remember last week we talked about how Blaney being 5-1, that was a major correction.
Yeah.
And now with the playoff, now he would have stayed closer to 5-1 had Truex or Larson been knocked out.
Yep.
But because they're both in, he gets pushed back. So now he becomes a pretty decent bargain again, considering there's only 4 races left, and you're still able to get 11-1. So
He's a bargain, and I think Bell. Oddly enough, it's weird to think. So there's one driver left that made the championship 4 last year that's still in the playoffs, and it's the guy that's the worst odds right now, Christopher Bell. So he's been there. He's the only one last year, this next gen, that made the championship 4, and he's the worst odds, and he's in a Toyota that we know these are some good tracks for him coming up too. So those are two good odds right there.
Yeah, if I was starting over like just now, and I had still not put money in, I would probably do Byron, Hamlin, Blaney, and Bell.
Yep, I agree. I actually no, Byron should, just because of how well he's going, but that stat of nobody swept Phoenix since like 1990, I would probably go Larson, Hamlin, Blaney, Bell.
The only thing is even though they haven't swept, it's gimmick.
It's different circumstances. Yeah.
So I'm not sure that really matters too much.
It doesn't.
The percentages are completely different.
The only thing where I've asked drivers with racing at a track twice, because remember in the past, you used to always be at Homestead. They only raced once at Homestead. Yeah. So that was your first visit. Where at least if you were really good at Phoenix the first round through in the spring, because the weather conditions are very similar between March and November. They said really typically 70s, 80-degree day. Doesn't really change much of the track conditions. It's more or less if you hit it right in March, where do you go to improve for November? To where if you were kind of in the window but not quite good enough in March, you know what to tinker with it to make it better in November. So I guess that makes sense. So like some of these guys that were, hey, we're in the window, but we didn't quite dominate. We didn't quite have the cars. Well, we know what direction to go to make it more dominant. Where the guys that were already dominant, the Larsons and the Byrons, how do you get better when you're already better? I mean, they dominated that race. So where do they go? So, but on the flip side, maybe they were just that good. Maybe one of these people find isn't going to still catch up to that. So you got that side of the argument too. But I think right now it's almost like your championship 4, in my opinion, are right now ironically ranked 1, 2, 3, 4. I think the top 4 right now in the standings are probably your championship 4, barring.
No, I don't think. No way. That's too easy.
It seems like it. Truex would be the one, but it's like then I'm looking through. I'm like, who's going to win out of this bunch below it? I still feel while we're previewing this because I know you emailed me. Yeah, and you emailed me yesterday.
Again, you don't have to win them, but I just can't imagine that the way that Truex and even Larson the last few races have raced recently, that they're just going to turn it right back on and be hot and not have an issue. All they have to do is have an issue at Vegas, and they're in the back.
It is. I think Bell and Reddick with the Toyota, they're sitting good. That somebody's pointing their way in. Even if all 3 races are won by playoff drivers, somebody's going to point their way in. But I know we were talking yesterday about playoff drivers or non-playoff drivers winning here in this round, and I know you had even more in stats, but when I looked into it was the last 3 years, a non-playoff driver's won in this round, which would open up 2 playoff spots for a wild playoff.
And here's the interesting thing: they happened at 3 different racetracks.
Yep.
Larson last year at Homestead, Bowman at Martinsville in 21, and Kyle Busch at Texas in 20. So here's Vegas. So now it doesn't mean it has to be Vegas, but that would be the only track if it's going to stay 100%, where it's
Vegas is
not
gonna.
just a
Yep.
non-playoff driver, but it's a different track. Has to be Vegas. If it's just a non-playoff driver, then we've got 3 races, and to keep that trend alive, so that could still be the case.
This round is one of my 5 things I'm watching. Article that's coming out tomorrow. Truex, this race is going to be a significant barometer, I would say, for Truex, because if he hasn't led a lap since Watkins Glen, I mean, he's since Daytona
Who's that?
on Truex, he's not led a single lap.
Yeah.
And if he's at a mulligan, he's got by this far because of his 35 or 36 playoff points that he's accumulated in the regular season.
That's it. Yes.
And the reason why the first round, even if there's 3 winners, you have 12 guys get by, so it leaves 9 spots on points to get by. Last round, you had 5 spots on points that you knew were getting by. Even if, say, Allmendinger doesn't win and Reddick wins, you still had 5 spots. There's 5 wild because 8 guys are moving on. There's 3 races. Well, this round, there's 3 races, but there's only 4 spots. It's down to 1. And the way he's running, he's not going to get that 1. He cannot come out in Vegas and finish 18th or worse, or 17th or worse, like he's had every race since Daytona and not lead laps. He doesn't have. I'm not saying.
How would you? Who would bet on him right now? The way he's going.
So I didn't touch him. I don't try. It's hard to go from that to race win. He's got to get a top 10 or top 5. He's got to get
that momentum changed. Yes,
and he's good at Homestead. So I'm like, all right, if he's got 3 top 5s in his last 5 at Homestead. Martinsville, he's won 3 of the last 8. We know what he can do at Martinsville. So
but
that's why
he's got a good history at the Vegas.
He does. That's why he's got to come out this weekend, and because if he's off, he's in trouble.
Yep.
But Hamlin, we know, is good at Vegas. Hamlin's good at Homestead.
Well, that's
Hamlin's
what I'm saying. I think
Homestead.
Hamlin and Byron are the more consistent guys that I'd be surprised if either one of them doesn't make it to the Final 4. But
and Larson,
I do not trust.
I don't either. But Larson in these races, I didn't trust him at Martinsville until these last few at Martinsville.
I do trust Larson more than Truex, definitely.
Yep. So that's why I feel like 3 of them are pretty. Again, this weekend says a lot for both of them. Can they come out and get a top 5 and top 10? I think that would kind of be that. We got to chase these guys now. They're going to actually, because Truex has lost points as every race has gone by. If he can actually gain points, then that changes. Buescher, Blaney, I think Buescher and Blaney's shot is going to be at Homestead. We'll see. Fords have had a detriment on these type of tracks. Reddick could come out and put a wrench in this thing and win on Sunday. I
think
wouldn't be shocked.
Reddick. I think those 2 have a shot on Sunday. And if either one of them wins, now we've got some interesting things happening. So
I think because a lot of people always ask, like, who's your favorite driver? Like, I don't have one. I like them all. I just like the top stories.
Yeah.
And I think the top story would be Buescher, Bell, Reddick, or Blaney winning on Sunday. Yeah. Yep. If one of them wins, then that's 1 spot to the championship 4 that's already taken. There's 3 left, 2 races, and there's 4 really good drivers right now going for 3 spots.
Yep, that would be nice. And you were talking about some of those other trends. Let's see. Other non-playoff drivers who have won round of 8 races. We have to go back to 2017 for the next one. That was Matt Kenseth winning Phoenix. That was before Phoenix became a championship race. And then in 2015 and 2014, how weird is this? That both Jimmy Johnson and Dale Jr. were non-playoff drivers that won round of 8 races, and they both did it in those 2 years. So interesting that they were able to do that together in 2015 and 2014. Also to note, Kyle Busch, and I don't think we have to worry about, do we? Yeah, there are a few. But anyway, bottom line, Kyle Busch is the only driver to not win a playoff race until winning Homestead and the title in 2019. So, I mean, that was crazy for Kyle Busch that year.
Just to show up, yeah. He was good. He just didn't win in the playoffs. Then he showed up and won that last one, which, again, it goes to where Denny Hamlin's point is it's just gimmicky to throw once we get to Martinsville and that race is done, it doesn't matter. It's just out of the 4, who are going to run 2, 3, 4. Who can beat the other? The past, it doesn't matter. Like Christopher Bell, he hasn't won since Bristol Dirt, but he's got a shot. He's got a path to get. He doesn't have to win this round.
Yeah.
He could point his way in and then go win Phoenix and have 2 wins all year and win the championship. So it's just a weird.
Well, Kyle had like 3 or 4 wins early that year.
Yep.
And so that's what helped him out. Kyle Larson is the only driver to win 2 of 3 races in the round of 8. So, again, the only driver to win 2 of 3 races in the round of 8. And he did win the first race that year, a couple years ago. Last year. That was last year.
Yep.
Right?
2 years ago. 2 years ago. It's odd to note, too, for this year, that is, with this race, for that stat you're talking, the last 2 years, the driver to win this race has won the championship.
Yes, that's right.
That's a huge advantage. And people may wonder why. I guess I can go more in depth at that because I've talked to teams and drivers at Phoenix to close out the year why that's the case. And it's because once you win this race, you don't care about Homestead. You don't care about Martinsville because points don't matter. Nope. You're already into Phoenix. Playoff points don't matter. Stage points don't matter. It just all you got to do is get to Phoenix. So if you win on Sunday, you have a 2-week head start before you get to Phoenix. You're massaging that car. You got all the details because none of the other guys can do that yet. Why would you focus on your Phoenix car? Why would you focus on a car that you don't even know you need? Because at that point, you're just every other car.
Yeah, sure.
So, and last year, and that's where it goes to the non-playoff winners, which furthermore helped Logano last year because Kyle Larson won Homestead. Kyle Larson was not in the driver's race. So that's another week that went by where the other 7 round of 8 drivers did not get a focus on their. So it's a significant advantage to win this race on Sunday, which is why I feel like this, when you're going to see all these 8 playoff guys really running towards it, you've got to throw all your eggs in this basket because it is a huge advantage to get that win out of the way and then move on. Plus, look at what's happening to the guys that are winning races the first race of the round. Kyle Larson, first, fourth, second in that round, first round. William Byron last round, first, second. So it could really push you to further depths. So it's a very big thing to watch this weekend is can they win the championship?
Logano, by the way, you mentioned Logano Larson did it the last 2 years. Logano did it both times he won a championship. And Jimmy Johnson is the other driver to win the first in the round of 8 and go on to win the championship.
It's also weird trends-wise while we're talking about it. I just pulled it up because I had this out this week too. So the trends that I wrote about earlier in the season about picking the championship 4 drivers, and then I updated it for the playoffs now that we knew these trends, they're all still alive. It's really weird to think about, but 3 times since 2016 did the number 1 seed enter the playoffs win the championship. And it's happened in odd years, 17, 19, 21, 23. That driver, William Byron, he's still in it. Second place driver in playoff points made the final round in 4 of the last 6. And all but 1 has at least made it to the round of 8. Martin Truex Jr., he's right there, so it bodes well for him. The third place driver has literally made the championship 4 every year. Denny Hamlin, third place driver. I think you can make a good case for him. 5 of the 6 years, someone outside the top 4, which this doesn't bode well probably for Larson. They did not, or 5 of the 6 years, someone outside the top 4 made the final 4. So if we say 1, 2, 3, good shot, all 3 of those are in, Larson will not be the one that probably made. So the odds of getting 1, 2, 3, 4 are going to be slim to none. It's only happened once in the last 6 years.
It's like the college basketball number 1 seeds.
Going chalk.
They never make.
Never happens. Nope.
Nope. You don't get 1, 1, 1, 1 in the final 4. So
the only other thing I was going to mention too, which is I wrote about, is when you look at round of 8 appearances, and this is kind of where veterans are going to start taking over. Truex and Hamlin have 15 combined between the 2 of them. The rest of the 6 have 14 combined. So they have more just between those 2 than everybody else combined. They have 9 final 4s between the 2 of them. The rest have 2. So veteran, you think, is going to probably really start taking over. And the 3 oldest drivers in the field right now, round of 8, Truex, Hamlin, Larson. Byron's the youngest.
Hamlin continues to be the one though in those groups that doesn't have a championship. So
That's the one thing, and that's it. It'd be an interesting storyline if he gets to Phoenix. Can
yeah,
he? Can he win the
that's
championship?
going to be it. So it all starts though with Las Vegas. So let's get to it. And as you mentioned, you won't. Well, look, we're at the point now where, especially this track, there's not a whole lot of long shots to consider. So I'm not going to tell you how many picks I had to make it a little bit more difficult. So how many do you think? Because you only made 4.
4. Yep.
So how many of those 4 do you think I also hit on?
You don't typically go the favorites, and I only went this route because I tried to go the wins. I'm gonna say 2. I was going half. 2.
Well, should have got a tip on what I was saying at the beginning because I don't. I just think this is a favorite race.
Okay.
So I'm going in on the favorites now. It just appears that way,
Yep.
and yeah, and you can't. And we all agree though. That's the funny thing about the one driver that we're taking out of the top 5. And that's Reddick. Excuse me, that's Truex.
Tricks. Yep.
CJ is the only one to take Reddick, but he is the one that does scare me the most. I'm more scared of Reddick than Truex. I just can't see Truex winning. I just can't see him doing it after the way he's been going.
He just needs to get, as you thought, a solid finish. And 11 of his last 12 Vegas starts, he's finished in the top 8. That's what he needs to do. Just finish the top 8. I just find it hard to believe the guy who hasn't won a race since July, who hasn't finished in the top or finished better than 17th since Daytona, is going to jump out and win a race. So he's going to let a lap in this span. So, yeah, I just feel like what he needs. I mean, he's been good. Kansas, light track, the closest track to compare to. Look at Kansas. He was 6th and 5th last season, 8th and 36th this year. And the only reason he was 36th is when that tire cut down and he wrecked. That wasn't anything he did wrong. He has a top 5 car before that. He had a top 8 finish in 4 of the 8 intermediate starts this year. It's just he doesn't scream race winner to me now.
Best case scenario, and because he has all those 7s and 8s recently, is 7th or 8th. That's all he should hope for.
That's what he needs. He just needs to gain points on the cut line. He's lost points every week of the playoffs. Every week he loses them. Now he just gain something. I think he just needs an uneventful I'll say top 10. I know he's been top 8 here. Just top 10 day and go to Homestead. That's it. Reddick was another one that kind of scared me because granted, he can win. I mean, he's got 3 top 10s his last 4 at Vegas. And then you look at that 45 car, like we talked about last round at Kansas, it's won 3 of the 4 with this next gen. And that's a similar track. It's just Larson and Byron and Hamlin are just so good there. And those cars are just there's just no money to be made if you take all 4 of them. So
well, here's the trick, though, that did it for me to leave Reddick out, was that he's only 2 points off of the 2 5-1 shots.
That's the reason I went with the 3 above.
If he was 10-1, I'd put him in there. I'd figure out a way. Guess what I did with Bell? I'd find a way to put some money on him. But
that's exactly what I did.
Do it at 7-1 when those guys are 4 and 5-1. No, I don't think he's that close to those guys here. He hasn't proven that much.
No, and the odds makers, man, they just make some puzzling decisions with these. And this is another. It's like you just grouped them all together. Yeah. I get Phoenix, and it's like, hey, just choose one. But this, there's no money to be made. Like if we weren't doing a fantasy league and doing this, I probably wouldn't bet on one of these guys. And with real money, I'd probably look for a top 5 or a prop pick because it's just that the race winner is probably Larson, Byron, Hamlin. Reddick could steal it, but Reddick being close to those odds, you're just not going to make any money if you bet on all 4.
Yeah, so I think the we'll go into our strategies because we did. Yeah, it's one of those things where the only way you can make money is you are going to have to invest money. If you're somebody out there that only gambles like $50 or $60 a week on this stuff, and you really want to make money and just don't want to make $30 off of it, well, you're going to have to double your your bank. That's the only
Yep.
way. And we'll go over how we would do it. Um, so you mentioned Kansas, so that's the most similar. That's what we'll go on. And then now Vegas, this is strategy wise, we can see 2 tire stops
Yeah.
to try to gain position.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. Now, granted, it depends on how many laps are left. That's the big thing. Like if you have a long green flag run at the end,
Well,
you're
somebody's
gonna
going to
want to
make
take
the
the floor.
decision, and it's probably going to be a teammate that's not in the
Yep.
playoffs.
You're going to run the interference. Yep. You're going to want to
You're going
have
to
depending
find
on.
out, okay, how'd you do on the 2 tires?
Yep.
And
That's where
then,
you're going to see, and that's why you see too. It's a good point of why you don't see a lot of. Granted, we said it could happen, but it seems to happen once a year, not multiple round of 8 races. Is your teammates are going to be used for that kind of data. Hey, we're not looking for, if you're Penske, we don't need Joey Logano to win. We need Ryan Blaney to have a shot to win. Well, why don't we use Logano's car for this half of the race doing this? And let's have Cindric and one to have to do this. And even the practice session that you're going to, granted, there's only 20, 25 minutes of them. They're going to go in 3 different directions. And why would you not? And which again goes to sometimes it's an advantage not to have a teammate in this late of the playoffs because you can divide and conquer. You know, Team Penske's all in. Logano and Cindric and their cars are going, what do you need from us, Ryan Blaney? What do you want us to try out?
yep.
So, which makes it harder to pick those drivers to win the race outright because, they're not going in a direction for them to win the race outright. They're helping a teammate. So, I think you'll see that even at the end of the race. Like, you might send, hey, you know what? I'm going to take Blaney, take 2 tires. We're going to have all of our guys take 2. Fords might unite. Like, let's get as many cars in between the lead and the other playoff drivers as we can. Maybe we get 2 tires on them and have them all do 2 and try to blend in front of Hamlin or somebody. Maybe they want to take 4 and let's just get everybody on 2, or maybe let's do fuel only and just play interference in the way and slow them down a little bit. So, yeah, if you get a late race caution, you're going to have some games played, and why would you not? That's just part of it when you get in the playoffs and you have 8 fighting for one thing and 32 going a different direction. You're going to see that. So, yeah, you're going to try everything you can do to help your teammate out.
So, again, Byron won and dominated March, the Pennzoil 400. Of course, the Chevy was in second position to start the race. So that's 10 of the last 13 have started in the top 10, 7 of the last 13 in the top 5, 3 of them started second, but no pole sitters have won this race since 2009. So so if you go out there and you sit there on the pole,
you're not probably winning. Yeah.
You might be better off. You might be better off in second. So
yeah, 1 for 31. So if it'll help you narrow down if one of these 8 playoff guys wins the pole, you probably don't want to go in his direction. They're 1 for 31, so avoid that. And 4 of the last 5 races were 1 for the top 3 rows. So take the top 6, eliminate, put an X through the pole sitter, and then put an X through if any other non-playoff drivers are in that top 6, and maybe that's the way you throw your $60 that way.
And by the way, Reddick, because you have all these drivers at such short numbers, you are going to have a driver. I think someone like maybe Reddick, that if he doesn't qualify, let's say he qualifies 8th or something like that, I think you might be able to get 10-1 on Reddick at a sports book on race day. So, so just because we're giving you this number again, you can shop. I think you might get a better number with a sports book or 2 out there with Reddick, either before or after qualifying, of course, depending on how he does. But probably better off, obviously after qualifying, as long as he doesn't qualify up front.
Well, you know who the pole sitter of this race was last year.
Oh, who was it?
Tyler Reddick.
Okay, well, then that's not a good sign.
No, but again, that goes for the pole sitters that not to pick him. But this seemed to be a big team. Penske, Stewart-Haas, Hendrick, Gibbs. You can throw a furniture row with Truex that one year in them. But out of the last 17 Vegas races, they've won 16 of them. So odds are a big team is probably going to win this race. 21 of the last 26 Vegas races, they were won by a past champion. So the champions seem to win here. Carl Edwards was one of them that hasn't won a championship, and he's won twice there. Denny Hamlin. Alex Bowman in the spring race of 2022, and then Byron this past spring. So you could say they're all they're not champions, but they're all worthy winners. So
Yeah.
the odds, basically what I'm getting to is it's probably not going to be a fluke winner, and it's probably going to be a driver from a big team. So
yeah, out
even
of all
more
the
so
three
to
of
hit.
us, there's only one fluke pick, and that was me. And I put a few bucks on Briscoe. That's it. Everything else are, um, I mean, and most of us again did Elliott, between Elliott and Larson. So yeah, so again, Reddick winning Kansas this year uh, is really important. He also won an Xfinity Series race at Las Vegas before. But the other thing to keep in mind, though, is in 10 races, he's only led 47 laps in the Cup Series. And in Kansas, when this year, when he finished first and ninth, he only led a combined 25 laps. So it's not like he's blistering
No.
the track at Kansas or even here this year, finishing 15th.
Yep.
Because that matters. He
It
only
does.
finished 15th. That's not overly impressive. So that's why we want better than 7-1. So now, as far as the I'm not surprised Larson was the favorite.
No.
I was going over the notes before the odds came out, and I probably would have had Larson as the favorite. So
Yep.
he's 4-1, and you would say, well, but he only has one win. But if you look inside, this is where you really see everything that says Larson, because he has 4 runner-ups and a win. He was runner-up this year, led 63 laps. He was runner-up in one of the races last year, and he's led 314 career laps here. 284 have been in the last 5 races. That's 56 per. And in Kansas, he was second and fourth with a combined 184 laps. And in his last 7 at Kansas, 5 top 10s, 4 top 5s, 2 runner ups, and a win for 535 laps. So between Kansas and Vegas, he has really been strong, definitely better than any of the other drivers here over the same period of time, which is why he has to be the favorite.
Yeah, he was a no-brainer for me. And one could say for intermediate tracks, these mile-and-a-half tracks, that he's the best driver on them this year. I mean, these are his type of tracks. And the reason being, when I look at Darlington, Kansas, Texas, Vegas, I mean, all those type of tracks, he could very well have 7 top 4 finishes in 8 tries. And the only reason he doesn't, so he's got 5 right now. But if you look at, he led 99 laps in Texas, and him and Bubba had that incident at the end of that race. He, bar none, had the best car there. So that's better than a top 4 car. And then Darlington, the spring race, the issue he had with Chastain on the late race restart while leading. He could be 7 for 8 in top 4 finishes on these tracks. And as you mentioned, his stats, and if you look at his last 3 spring starts on this track, first, second, top 2 in each. He's just good. I mean, and last year, you look at the 35th place finish, that doesn't scare me because this was the race him and Bubba Wallace had that wreck and that fight. They were running up front when that happened. So he's going to have a good car. So he's deserving for that number. 4-1 was, it's a little steep in this next gen era, but he's worthy of it. He's definitely a guy we're going to want to take this weekend. But I will say, if you're in like our friend, like a fantasy league or like a survivor, and you could pick maybe a driver around, I'd probably save him for next race at Homestead, because that's right up his alley. And I maybe go with our next driver, Byron, which will get in his stats. If you're in a league like that, maybe punt on him because he's just leaps and bounds better than everybody at Homestead. But he should win this weekend. And you maybe even can parlay a top 3, top 5 with him here too.
Well, the only two negatives. One is he's not hot, and
Yep.
2 are the odds. He's the favorite. He's 4-1. So you are going to have to see. We did it completely different. I put 100 down, so I'm still going to be able to clear 100 if he wins, based on our formula of $400 invested in the race this week. You decided to put the most money on Larson, 160, to make 640. So, and by the way, this is not a race where you put it all on one driver, because you've got 3 guys, at least 3, Larson, Byron, and Hamlin who could all win this race.
Yep.
But yeah, so I did it more of because of the negatives. I was like, well, I still want to make a little bit off of him, so I'm going to invest it. I have to. And you were like, you know what? I'm not worried too much about how he's racing compared to how much he races well on these tracks. So
Yep. And spoiler alert, I get to talk to him on Thursday. Well, weather permitting, Thursday. He's out here testing at the Motor Speedway in Indianapolis Motor Speedway in IndyCar for preparation for the Indy 500. So I'm going to actually talk to him about that. And sometimes he's best when he just gets away for a minute and does something else and gets his mind kind of. You hear people talk about like, hey, I'm just struggling on the field. I'm going to go play a round of golf just to clear my mind and get. This is his round of golf. He's about to drive an IndyCar at the Indianapolis Motor. It's getting his mind from the NASCAR thing for a minute, and it seems to be when he runs dirt and does these type of things, he shows up and spinks the field. And I just feel granted, there's a chance of rain. So if it rains, he can't do it because he's got to get to Vegas. So it's not like he can be delayed a day. So if he gets to do it, it just seems like it always seems to work out well in his favor. So
all right.
We'll see what happens.
Byron and Hamlin are next, and you decided to put 100 each. So now I put 120 on Byron compared to 100 on Hamlin because Byron's my top pick. So, so he won earlier this year. He's going to have to sweep, but he dominated. Led 176 to 271. And at Kansas, he did have a third place out of the two, but he's red hot, second, first, last three. And it's like we've been waiting for this William Byron for the last 3 years.
Yep.
And it's happening. So before our eyes, it's happening, which is why right now, as of today, he would be my favorite to win the championship.
I agree. I mean, we've talked about this a couple times this year, early in the season. And then we brought it up again, really the Indy road course out here. Like, well, Byron did it again. He got hot, and then he disappeared. He's done this before, and he doesn't come back until the next season. And then he wins Watkins Glen. Like, well, maybe he's on to something. Well, can he sustain this? I think he has. Now I think we can show that, okay, he's weathered the peaks and the valleys. Because you hear drivers talk about that. This next-gen car, you just don't get a rhythm. You're going to go up and down. You're not going to go out there and finish top 5 every week. It's not like the old car. You're not going to win in bunches. How do you respond to that? I think he's responded pretty well because in the past we've seen Byron, like I said, he fade. All right, he's in his valley and he's not peaking again. He's gone. Well, I think this year when you look at, like we said, since Watkins Glen, 1st, 8th, 4th, 15th in Kansas, granted he had that tire issue. That 15th was pretty good because it's a rebound. 9th, 1st, 2nd. And he just said he swept both stages, led 176 to 271. And then I look at what he's done on, like I said, of Larson on these type of tracks. Well, here's Byron's finishes on the same tracks where Larson, I said he should be 7 for 8. Byron's 1st, 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 8th, 4th, 15th, which Kansas, 1st, Texas. He just has got a knack for these tracks. And it just seems to be his year. He would get the win this round and get to the next. And if I'm everybody else, these other 7 drivers in this field, if I can't win this race or a teammate can't win this race, I'm cheering for William Byron to win this race because we're all trying to catch him anyways. He's already points wise. He doesn't hurt you. He's already number 1.
True. Yep.
So if he's going to he's not going to get rubbed wrong. Nobody wants to create drama or animosity with a potential payback with Martinsville looming. He doesn't hurt you if he wins. He's already there. He's already number 1 in the points. So it just feels right. I agree. I felt like between Larson and Byron, they're the top 2. They should finish 1-2. Granted, we've seen crazier things happen, but they should have the top 2 cars off the truck on Saturday's practice.
Hamlin, meanwhile, it's not like he there's a few things with Hamlin. It's when you take a look, he only has 1 win in 23 races. Nothing great. 369 laps, nothing great. 11th this year, nothing great. Matter of fact, new car, this is where I'm a little bit, and that is because if you look at it, he led 46 laps on the new car in the 3 races combined since last year. But the previous 3 races before they changed the car, first, fourth, and third, he led 305 of his 369 career laps. So he was just starting to get it with the old car. They switch, and he's just okay. Now, that's just Vegas, though. Kansas is where it comes back, because this year at Kansas, first and second with 97 laps combined, which puts you right back in. If he didn't, I tell you right now, if he did not have those Kansas numbers, I'm not sure I'm betting him. I'll be honest with you. But the Kansas numbers say, all right, I'll put 100 on him, just like Larson.
Same, because he's shown as he flashes to figure this place out. Because if you go back further before those last three finishes with the previous car, you had to go back to 2015 with those last top 5 there, and it was 5th.
Yeah.
And he led, 14 laps total in that process. And then you got to go all the way back before that to 2007 for his last top 5. So he struggled at this track. Then, as you said, he figured out. 2 of his 3 finishes at this next gen have been outside the top 10. So that doesn't scream, uh-oh. But like you said, Kansas, he was 4th and 2nd there last year even. So he's got 4 straight top 4s at that track. And it just feels like this is his year. You just get the feeling. He's got 4 top 5s in his last 5 on the season in the playoffs.
And let's keep in mind the Roval destroyed his momentum.
Yep. Darlington, 25th, but he led the most laps. He thought he had a loose wheeling pit, so he swept both stages. So I look at that, and then Daytona. I don't look at Daytona, and I really don't look at the Indy Road Course because that's like another Roval. So if you take those out, you have to go all the way back to really if you look at Atlanta Superspeedway, Chicago's another street course, Sonoma's a road course.
Let's go.
Charlotte.
Let's start at New Hampshire.
7th.
And I'm just going to talk about let's just go the results of the regular tracks.
Yeah.
So go right ahead.
I would honestly go back to. You could probably go back to Gateway with him. Regular tracks.
Okay, we can do that. 2nd at Gateway.
2nd, skip Sonoma.
3rd at Nashville.
3rd at Nashville. Skip the next 2. 7th. 1st. 2nd. 3rd. Skip. 2nd.
Skip.
25th.
No, we're not going to skip because that's a regular.
That was when he swept both stages and should have won.
Stages, yes.
Yep. 2nd. 1st. 5th. And then we'd skip to be fair.
Skip the next 2.
But it'd be 3rd technically in that. So he's a top 5 car on basically everything, on every occasion. Yeah. That's why I went with him. I'm like, the body of work now tells me, he's figured this thing out. I feel like he's figured this next gen. He figured it out here. I'd be foolish if I didn't. I'm dropping $400 if I don't at least throw something his way. So
I think he's the 3rd of the 3.
Yep.
Which will make it a little harder to win because then you're asking both of those guys to not have the type of races we're expecting them, but he's right there. So he can. And I do
think, as weird as it sounds, which he's probably going to be our next pick, he's my 2nd in Gibbs camp. I think my sleeper, my other driver, is my favorite out of the Toyota camp. And that's why I knew I had to find a way to get him in this number because I do feel good about that one.
Well, let's talk about – I'll tell you what, let's go with Bell. Yeah. So just like we were saying with Reddick, if Reddick's numbers can go down to Bell, we're right there with him.
All over it. Yep.
Think it will. See, Bell, very similar. Matter of fact, if you take a look at his numbers, Bell's career stats are extremely similar to Reddick's at this track. It's like almost identical, if not even a little better. And yet he's 11-1, Reddick is 7-1. And Bell was 5th this year. Reddick was 15th this year. Throw in the fact that he was on the pole at Kansas in one of the 2 races, crashed in the other one. And if you look at the Xfinity Series, he has 3 top 5s and 2 runner-ups, and he led 154 laps the last time he raced the Xfinity Series in 2019. So this is a good track for him. Kansas is okay. It's nothing terrible, but and then I don't care too much about same thing we just talked about with Hamlin. I'm not worried too much about the last couple of races. The 3 before that, 8th, 3rd, and 4th, said that especially those back-to-back top 5s, which we hadn't seen at all this year.
Yep.
were leading us to believe that he's kind of getting going at the right time, and we're getting 11 to 1.
Yeah, he was a no-brainer. And you look, like you said, he's comparable to Reddick, and I think you can look at this track and even Kansas and say he's comparable to Hamlin. I mean, fifth in the spring race. And the only reason he was 34th last year was he was that innocent bystander with the Wallace and Larson crash.
Okay.
He was the guy that was just trying to get away. He was fourth in the first stage. He was running up front. And when Larson and Larson and Bubba had that incident in turn 4, he was just there. And he was running up front with them. He was there. He got collected. So he's been a top 5 car at this track. And then you look at Kansas, and he was 5th and 3rd there last year. He was 36th in the spring race, and he was caught up in a wreck. It wasn't his of doing. He was just caught up in it. And then he was 8th in the playoff race. And that 8th was kind of that first thing to kind of get that momentum back going again. He had a better car than 8th. So you look at, he's finally starting to turn the corner. And I think he needs to just get that win. He's the only driver in the playoffs that hasn't won in a while. I mean, you look at Blaney just won. Chris Buescher, yes, he hasn't won the playoffs, but he won 3 of the final 5 regular season races. Larson's won the playoffs.
He really hasn't won a race this year.
No, he won dirt.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would go a long way to his confidence. And you're getting Toyota, we know, is good at this track. It's basically a Gibbs versus Hendrick battle. I'll roll with the guy that's getting better number, almost double the number than what they're getting for similar results.
So I put 50 on him, you put 40 on him, so we're right there together on Bell. Blaney next at 13 to 1, and now it's interesting because Blaney does not have these great numbers, but they're solid enough at both of these tracks that leads you to believe that he's going to come in here hoping to get like a top 7. If I can get a top 7, hey, top 5, that's a win. I get a top 5, I'm feeling real good about my position. And there's no reason to think that he can't do that. He may even be a pretty decent sleeper, if you can call it a sleeper, but odds-wise, he would be in this group. Buescher's the only guy with the odds that are not as good because Logano won the race last year. So there's got to be something there. And if you look at it, 5 top 5s out of his career, and Kansas all time 7 top 10s, 3 top 5s, all time 5 top 5s at Vegas. So he's had success, not a lot, but enough, because we've seen him at other tracks have no success. So this is okay. And how about this too? This is also interesting. The if you look at it in the old car, before the last year and a half with the new car, 9 top 12s and 11 with 8 top 7s and 5 fifth place finishes. So that's pretty good. It's just that the new car, he hasn't been as good, but again, he just has enough. Even Xfinity Series, 2 races, 4th and 2nd. He's had enough success at this track that if it just clicks, if he just gets the help, if something that just happens, you can't even you can't even say that he doesn't have a shot to win. But like I said, top 5, I think he'd be really happy.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going for. They have to. It's kind of like Texas. They kind of knew they were bringing a knife to a gunfight, and you really need. I guess I should have probably said that with what's going on in the world. That's so. Apologies.
Yeah, we won't.
I didn't want to go. I don't want people to think we're insensitive.
We don't even want to divert our attention elsewhere because then we'll stop the show.
I realized I probably shouldn't have. Wrong word. I hope
okay.
they know what I mean. I hope they know what I did. I should have said that disclosure.
Yeah.
But he knew that their speed was lacking compared Chevy and Toyotas.
Yeah.
They know that going to this race. But if you get a lot of stage points and get by, mission accomplished. And Texas, look, he had a top 10 car. They were speeding on pit road.
Yeah.
So if he had the second most stage points. If he could do that same path, come into Homestead, which is a better track for him, and do the same thing, we know what he could do at Martinsville. Blaney could point his way in. He's not too far out. Yes, he's last in the 8. But look, Larson's 40-24 points scored. He's 44. He's 10 points off the cut line. That's not bad.
No.
So And like you said, he's kind of like Hamlin in a way. He had this track figured out before this next gen. I mean, you just look at since 2019. This race in 2019, fifth, 11th, seventh, fifth, fifth. So I don't take this 36, 28, 13 like, oh,
Yeah.
Ryan Blaney sucks here.
No.
That's not true. It's just maybe this car. And like you said, he's Logano's teammate. Logano won this race last year. So all the eggs are going in Blaney's basket. So I wouldn't count him out. I just didn't like the 13-1. I thought maybe he should be a little bit further back.
I agree.
To entice me to want to buy that.
Yes.
He's a good play for a top 10. If you want to gamble on a top 5, yeah, that'd probably be good. Outright race win at 13-1. I don't necessarily like that number. But I should say, this is the other caveat to this. Blaney he's finished 5th. No, I'm sorry. 36th, 28th, 13th with the next gen. He's qualified 11th, 4th, 3rd. He's got speed. So
he's
can he take that race?
49 laps with the new car in the 3 races. Hamlin has led 46 laps.
Yep. So and you get 13-1 with him. So yes, I do think Fords have a detriment compared to them. But if you're looking for good fantasy play, it's a good driver to have. He's a playoff driver. He's going to get everything Ford's got. They're relaying on to him and Buescher. They know what they're battling against here, and give him enough speed, and we'll see what happens. So yeah, I don't like the number, but I do like him. I don't think he's a bad play.
You might get a better number again.
Exactly.
I don't know if he'll be 13 unless he qualifies in the top 5. But if he qualifies 8th or 9th, you might be able to get 15, 16, 17-1 at your sports.
Yeah, then he's a little more attractive for that number.
Throw a few bucks on him as a sleeper. Yeah. Buescher, meanwhile, he is clearly the only driver out of these 8 that you just go pass.
Yep.
Not going to do it. Has never shown anything at this track, even this year. Not shown anything at Kansas. Just not seeing it. Not going to happen. He'd be happy with. He'd be delighted with a top 10.
Yep, and he's got one of those in his career. Even the Xfinity Series, he was 9th and 14th. His best finish, if you count the Xfinity Series, is 9th. This just has never been a good track for him. So yeah, just get as many stage points as you can and just get a top 15 and move on to the next
and even Keselowski, his teammate this year, was 17th. So none of them have done anything at this track recently with the new car. Look, the best they've done to 3 of them out of the 6 combined races, 15th.
Yep.
That's it.
And I don't know why that would change this weekend. It just doesn't scream like you just kind of are what you are at this point. And it'd be one thing if he's shown flashes in the past, like a Blaney or Hamlin, like, oh, I know how to do good here. It's just I haven't grasped this car yet. He hasn't shown that, and Keselowski in years hasn't shown that. Nope. He's got 1 top 5 since 2020 at this track. So that's Keselowski being. So this is an easy week to punt on both RFK cars.
Yeah, definitely. Keselowski at 16-1. That's why would he be 16-1? I mean, no way.
Yeah, he hasn't been that all year most places. Even when he's in the playoffs, you couldn't get him.
Matter of fact, I'm putting a little bit of money. I'm putting $9 on 3 drivers besides the 3 I'm putting on Briscoe. And I'm putting $9 on Chastain, Wallace, and Bowman. So those are my 3 long shots, my legitimate long shots. And Chastain, 2nd and 3rd last year, led 68 laps in this race when he finished 2nd last year, and 83 laps in the March race last year when he finished 3rd. Last 4 at Kansas, he has 3 top 10s, all top 13s, and a 5th. And he does have 1 win in the Xfinity Series, and he's never really been a great Xfinity Series driver. Wallace, meanwhile, 4th this year, the best he's ever finished at this track. He actually led a combined 29 laps last year with bad results. Kansas, in his last 4, a win and 2 other top 10s and another top 5 besides that. And he has 2 top 10s in Xfinity Series. So I know it's going to be hard for Chastain and Wallace to psychologically regroup, but at 22-1, if they just happen to be on their game, then I see no reason to not throw a couple of bucks on a non-playoff driver. And then Bowman, meanwhile, you mentioned before, he's got the win. He has 3 top 5s in all. In his last 3 at Kansas, 10th, 4th, and 9th, leading 107 combined laps. 3rd this year at Kansas. And so his last 2 last 2 Las Vegas finishes are 3rd and 1st. And then the reason I just did a couple of bucks on Briscoe was because he was 4th in one of the races last year, and he had a sweep in 2020 in the Xfinity Series, leading a combined 253 laps. So at 150 to 1, I said, what the hell? He hasn't won a race this year. If he has a chance to win it, of course he's going to try. So those are my 4 long shots, but I only invested 9, 18, 20, so $30 out of the 4.
Yeah, I wish I had more money because I would have went with definitely Wallace, Bowman. Wallace, remember too, his result last year, the 36, was because he wrecked with Larson while leading.
There you go.
And Texas, granted, it's not exactly similar, but it's the same package. He led 114 laps from the pole and almost won. So Wallace will be a strong play with the Toyota too.
And I don't think Wallace is the type of driver with the way they got going, and I know he's going to try to do whatever he can to help, but he's not the type of driver that's not going to try to win.
No, he wants to end with a win. Yeah. Plus, if he wins, he keeps another playoff driver from winning. It helps his teammate. Yeah. Bowman's a strong play. Bowman was one, 1st and 3rd, his last 2 finishes there. So, granted, we never know what he could do. He led 18 laps of those 2, so
he doesn't have a win, so he's going to want to get the stench off of his season if he could.
Yep, and 2 other drivers that I'm watching. I wish he was like 65 or 75 to 1. Like I feel like he should. It was Eric Jones at 45 to 1. I'm not sure why he's 40.
To me. I'm actually a little bit surprised at what is it about Jones that you like?
Well, he was 8th last year in this race. And then in the spring race last year, if you remember right, he was in the top 5. He wrecked at like 7 to go, but he was in the top 5 that day. Okay. So it's, to me, two caliber top 5, in 3 races. And then if you just rewind to Kansas, he was 3rd. And then you look at Texas, he was in the top 3. Remember, he pit and then got caught up, and he could have just stayed out. So I think you're getting a top 5 car right there.
Okay.
I just don't like 45 to 1. I just find it.
I agree. That's what caught me off guard. I was like, what's he doing at 45 to 1?
Yeah, because 65 to 1, where he's kind of been housed a lot lately, that made a lot more sense. 45 was like, oh, that's way too far off. I'm not touching that. And then the only other one, which I feel like we mentioned, is because he's still in the playoffs, is Chase Elliott in the owner's race.
And by the way, CJ put money on Elliott again.
I don't think he'll win, but he does have 2 top 10s in his last 3, but he's led 1 lap in that process. He would be a good play for a potential top 10 if you can get him. But he's got 2 career top 5s on this, or no, 3 career top 5s on this track. So I don't necessarily trust he's going to jump out and win. He's not great. He's just okay at Kansas, but I thought plus 1,500 was a little weird for him too. I feel like if he was farther back, it might entice me a little bit, but
to 1 or something,
I don't think he's going to jump out and win this race by any stretch.
He's never won at Las Vegas before, and now he's going to win on his worst season.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, so he's running better. He's running for an owner's race. That's why I wanted to mention him, because he's a good. If you get it for a top 10 play, he's a good fantasy play, because I think people forget that owner's race spot. And he's in it, and if you look at his results lately. I mean, even if you go since the Indy Road Course, 2nd, 32nd, Watkins Glen, which we had a mechanical failure, 4th, 8th, 6th, 7th, 11th, 7th, 9th.
He's been consistent, sure.
He has. And
he's not leading laps, though.
No, that's why I don't think outright speed is he going to win. No, but it could be a factor.
And also, I did make a move on my fantasy team. We had one more week where we could make moves to pick up drivers. So I decided to drop Ricky Stenhouse for Aric Almirola. And
smart.
I have no problem with that, because Almirola actually has some decent numbers at a couple of these tracks coming up, and Stenhouse has nothing. So I just felt I was going to get nothing out of Stenhouse, and at least Almirola is just the type of driver that he'll win races you're not expecting him to.
Yep.
He hasn't won yet this year, and like I said, he has some decent numbers at some of these tracks in the next few weeks. So you guys have better. You guys don't have anybody you should trap. I mean, Cindric would have been the only one I think you probably would have considered. But other than that, even though CJ doesn't have great bottom drivers, that's hurt him all year. They're better than Almirola. So I understand why you guys passed on them.
Yeah, it's one of those I've just kept it kind of status quo for much of this. And I knew last week would be a difficult. My guys aren't necessarily built for road course racing. I feel like the worst races for my team is road courses. I was like, all right, I got one left, get through the weekend. And
he sure kicked ass, man. He put himself right back into our fantasy season because he was way back like over 600, I think it was.
Yep.
And he finished what, first, second, third, and fifth maybe.
Yeah, I got it up. Scroll up just a little bit. He had
first,
1, 2, 3,
second,
4th. Yeah. Six of the top 11.
Fourth.
Well, we kept saying all year, like, man, his team is built for a road course. He's got a road course team, and he's been kicking our ass on every road course race. And now
look, now it's because now the points are huge to win.
Yep.
So,
well, and you look at the Your Nice team now moving forward at the tracks coming up in playoffs. You got Blaney, Larson, Reddick, Busher's a playoff driver. Chastain is going to kind of be there. So, you're Eric Jones for your team. I mean, Briscoe. We talked about those guys are good. Your anchor drivers. I got Hamlin, Bell, Logano. We know what he can do. Keselowski outside of this race, Wallace,
and Bowman. Yeah,
you got Bowman. You got to think Harvick's in him. You just got to think he's going to still win somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and this is not. By the way, we didn't mention Harvick because this is not a good track for Harvick to even consider.
Yeah,
so
this isn't the one for him.
No.
CJ, where again you get a look for his struggles. It's outside of Byron and Truex.
AJ's done, but he got the win for him. That's what he needed.
Gibbs, I don't see him winning these. It's going to be tough for a rookie to win the 4 races left. Dillon's, I feel like he's been done for a while. Suarez has given nothing. Lately.
I think the best he could do with Dillon is if you look at Dillon, is maybe he gets like a top 15 points thing because he has 7 top 10s in 7 of his last 10 races at Las Vegas were in the top 13, and in his last 7 at Kansas he has 6 top 14s and 3 10th place finishes. So Dillon is a nice little sneaky top 15, outside top 10 fantasy guy, so maybe he gets that there, and he made the switch for Suarez last week.
Yeah, that's what you need now in your bottom team is those guys just top 20. That's all you need them to do. Let your guys up front, and then just get top 20s.
Look at that. That was a 520 point week, and puts him right back in it. And he has Byron at the top, and you have Hamlin at the top, and I have Blaney at the top.
Right there.
So we're all right there. And Byron is just kicking ass, though. He's got the big numbers. He's way ahead of any of our drivers. And then that's going to wrap things up. But bottom, look, again, compared to last year when you were killing everybody, we have a race.
I know. We do. A lot of parity going on. So
could come down to we just got to hope we just got to make sure we have a driver in the Final Four.
That's the key is get somebody in the Final Four.
Yeah, because you have what? You have 2 left?
I think you and I both. Left? I think I have Hamlin.
2. You got Hamlin and Bell.
And you've got 3. He's got Byron and Truex. I think you have the other 3. You have Blaney, Larson, Reddick. Yeah.
4.
No, you have 4. Yeah.
Blaney, Larson, Reddick, and Busher. Yeah. So I better have one guy in there with having 4.
Out of 4. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, those odds are like almost impossible for me not having one guy.
If you got 4 and don't have 1, that is some major bad luck in these next few weeks.
That would be pretty weak. All right, so next week we have Homestead.
Homestead, yep.
So the old championship grounds, and you are still heading to Phoenix next month, correct?
Yep.
So we're going to have to try to still figure that out. Hopefully we'll be able to get some reaction stuff in there. And so anyway, check out racereviewonline.net. Obviously, you already have articles out. You're going to continue to put them out between now and then. And are you pretty much done? Is there anything else besides NASCAR, like IndyCar stuff that you work on, or is that going to be quiet for a few months?
It's kind of quiet. I'll be more like IndyCar's testing this week, like out here, the Speedway. So nothing major.
Nothing major. So pretty quiet. Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. Appreciate it as always, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody also for watching and donating and sharing and liking the videos. All that stuff is awesome. We love our limited compared to the top channels out there. We love our limited viewers, but we've got a lot of other cool stuff that we have planned before next year. I'm already working on a whole bunch of stuff to boost up the numbers on the channel and so forth. So we're going to hope to, and again, if anybody out there wants us, I mean, look, I'll put the fantasy league together myself, but it'd be a lot easier if any of our viewers, if you guys are in fantasy leagues and you want to advise us and send us a link and tell us this is the one, and I'll put it together. And maybe I can put it together for everybody and we can have a channel fantasy league where it's only our viewers and then the three of us. So send me whatever you got. And I'll do the rest if I need be, because I'll have more than enough time when the season's over. That's for sure. All right, Eric. I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Sounds good.